Hey, welcome back. And welcome us back. Datingwhileadulting.com, Dating While Adulting, the podcast, Dating While Adulting, the YouTube channel, Dating While Adulting on Twitter. Reach us at podcast at datingwhileadulting.com. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention in the last podcast episode, Reggie, is finally after like 2 months, we got approval on Pandora. So now we are officially on Pandora and
Woohoo!
we are officially on every platform necessary. If there's some other platform that you listen to podcasts on, then I would seriously want to have a conversation with you as to why you are on a platform that we are not on.
I know that has to be annoying as hell. I'm sitting messing with my camera while you're talking.
Oh no,
You just smack the hell out of me.
it bothered me too, but hey, I'm still trying to figure out why we're on camera in the first place. But
You because someone wanted to go to YouTube,
yeah, you.
but someone shot me down. You're an idiot. And where are we at? And where are we now?
Here we go again.
Okay.
So yeah, we're on Pandora. If you're like on some besides the ones that we list, iTunes, Google, Spotify, Pandora now, iHeart, a couple others, YouTube, whatever it is, then that's on you. Well, actually, no. If you want us to add some other, I guess it'd be one of those.
Dude, just go to the site and pick which one you want to go to.
Thank you. Just go to the site datingwhileadulting.com and listen, listen there. But on this,
I'm gonna get this camera thing right.
okay, you work on that. We got like 45 minutes. Knock yourself
Okay.
out. So what we wanted to do is pick up where we left off on. Oh, let me just say one other thing because it's funny because looking at the introductory video and the video for the last episode we did, the one thing that's funny is I'm looking all over the place, and for people what I'm looking at, I have an interesting setup here. I have a couple of monitors here, my laptop obviously, and then I have a big TV that I'm looking at now, which for whatever reason, I need a TV on to function at all times, even if I'm not watching it. When I come in the house, the first thing I do is turn the TV on.
It's called weirdo.
Yeah, I go to sleep with the TV on. I set the timer when I go to sleep so it'll turn off while I'm sleeping. I just always have a TV on regardless of what I'm doing, how intense it is, or whatever. But that's just me.
But in real, that's that whole white noise thing. They said it's on that.
Yeah. And the other thing, which is even weirder, is when I go to sleep, I like to turn it to the Food Network or the Cooking Channel. So I like to watch people talk about food. It puts me to sleep for whatever reason.
I wonder why. One thing about Michael that people may not know, unless you his close friend, this guy is like 170 pounds, 75 pounds soaking wet. But this dude, still at the tender age of 50, would eat as if he's 15 years old.
Now,
Therefore, he sit and the thing about the whole so he eats, he loves he has this very unique palate on the food. And he looks at the Food Network and he see all these great things, but he doesn't cook either. But he'll eat it. But he's not gonna cook a damn thing. But he will eat the hell out of some stuff.
I don't like to cook. Because I don't like to clean. I hate cleaning. If somebody would come and clean, I would learn how to cook. That would be my thing. But
Oh, actually, I used to be the same way. And my dad is a retired firefighter slash he was also the chief cook in the military and also the firefighter. And forever, I guess it was just me just being stubborn, which is a trait. Um, or vice. He used to always cook and clean at the same time. And for whatever reason, it didn't dawn on me until like recently, like in the last 3 years. Because cooking is actually kind of cool. It's just like you sit there and said, that whole, dude, I got this whole sink of dishes and stuff. What the? I don't want to do that stuff. And then one day it just hit on me like, oh, I was at a friend's house and she was doing the same thing. And I was like, huh, my dad does that. Let me try this. So I actually started doing it. I'm like, oh, so this is how that works. Ding dong.
well, what's interesting about that is that I do cook while I clean, clean while I cook, clean
You
while
do?
yeah, I do, and it's still just annoying. I don't like the idea of just period in general. I'm just like you said, a weirdo like that. I have
You're
to,
weirdo.
yeah, I'll be that. But
Oh,
the
another non-topic thing before we actually get into this.
what's up?
Um, Are you using the audio through your Mac to
What,
hear?
or something?
To hear? Because you don't have headphones on.
Oh yeah, it's audio from my Mac.
Oh,
I always wondered about that because every podcast I look at, people have earpieces in or headphones in and stuff like that, but I hear just fine.
hmm. Like that's one reason why I asked. Even though this conversation could probably be had offline, but hey, what's the point? We need to make it more. Our goal here is to make it more as if you are eavesdropping on our conversations, our intimate conversations that we've had over the past couple of years. So it's not as structured and polished as some of those other guys. And realistically, we don't want to be that, even though sometimes I do get to that realm. As in the last podcast that we had, Michael said, "Yeah, there used to be some things. I mean, there are things that we have to not, we have to be more restrictive on because this is outside versus our conversations we have internally. But we're trying to make it as intimate and as real as our conversations and our debates and our discussions that we have talking to each other."
Yeah, think of it as being more rustic, and there's a balance there because, like I said, I listen to a lot of these podcasts. That's kind of my thing. I enjoy podcasts. That's what kind of led to us starting this. But the thing that's weird about it is that there is a fine line between somebody spending way too much time talking about random stuff that nobody cares about and inviting people in. The example I gave is like two podcasts that I listen to are Joe Rogan's podcast and Drink Champs, two of my favorite podcasts along with Tony's. And the thing is, those are like 3 to 4 hours long. And what's weird about them is that they talk about, well, Drink Champs, he just gets drunk and starts slurring after the first hour. A lot of these podcasts, it's like they spend too much time talking about things that nobody cares about, kind of like my eating habits. But, but like
Well, no, that's not necessarily because you may find your soulmate, excuse me, your twin flame, and this is a vital piece of information that they may have in order to try to entrap you, quote unquote. Oh, Michael likes to eat, huh?
now,
See,
now what'll happen is it'll turn into a thing where they think that they need to cook for me, and that's not something that I look for because I've been in relationships before where um, it's been one of those, look, I need more from you, and she'll be like, well, I cook, and I'm like, that's not what I need, chief. I need
we hold on, we're gonna table that one because that's that the other podcast. So we let's go into the weakness continuation. So I
yeah.
started looking in your eye.
It's,
Was that
it's,
a song?
speaking of that, though, let's go back into the weakness conversation after spending 8 minutes on that. Yeah, part of the reason that we're continuing this, at least from my standpoint, is because we didn't get the answer as to why Reggie disagreed with me. And just to recap from a couple of days ago, when I hope you listened to it or whenever you listen to it, this all started because I said that Reggie dates weak women or has dated weak women. He took the night to think about it and came back the next day and said that he disagreed. And the question that I have for you right off the top is, why did you disagree after thinking about it all night? You look back at your relationships and say that those women were strong, especially after giving us the definition.
Hold up, because this is one of those rare moments that actually will be caught on camera. I have to retract that I disagree.
Oh, so now you agree with me. Yes.
Unfortunately, with the definition and the definition going back in how I define weakness, um, is people are, in my opinion, people have core values that they anchor their identity to. And this forms between the ages of 1 till 7 or 8. Some other values are instilled in them by parents and culture and stuff like that. But there are core values that people identify with as who they are. A weak person continually compromise those core values to satisfy other people's needs.
Hmm.
Every once in a while, everyone does it. So, there's a moments of weakness, but for me to call a person weak, that means that their belief system of who they think they are, they're always giving deference to other people to either keep the peace or people pleasing or to impress. And there is a continual cycle, not one and two times. It's it's almost became a habit, a behavior aspect of coping with not dealing with who they really are. And as I went back to analyze um using that definition, I have to agree with you. Yeah, there were no, not even were. Even when we mentioned the one who shall not be named, she just like to fight me. Realistically, she did for the most part relinquish her core values to me. And it's like, okay, but then and the sad thing of that is you can't do that because once, as Michael said, what we talked about in the last podcast, it takes me 2 to 3 years because I'm analyzing. Because most people aren't going to sit there and do the self-reflection of, okay, this is who I am. We have personas that we put out in the public where not it's not necessarily us, but what gets us what we want. I'm sitting there observing you while we're talking and asking you questions and just seeing you in your natural habitat, like that mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom back in the day. And I'm taking notes and I'm taking notes. And I build a picture of who I see that most people may not even realize they're actually doing it because it has become so ingrained in them. And then I map up what you tell me or what you actually do when it comes to the relationship. And it's like, well, there's inconsistency here. And there's one thing about my quote unquote personality type. I don't like inconsistencies. It just, and understanding that, hey, this is who I am. This is who I want to present to you. And it matches up. Everything matches up in a line. I'd be like, okay, I like you enough as a person who I think you are. And from what I've seen and what you said, okay, let's have a real committed relationship. And I do use that L word then. Oh, I love you. Because what I see is the person who I can be compatible with. Because I'm bouncing it back and forth. I'm bouncing it back and forth. And that's why it takes like 2 to 3 years for me to even sit there. Because most people either A, gonna lie, or B, don't really know who they are. And something that my mom has told me that it's true and not true, but mostly is true. And you know me, Michael. I'm not necessarily the most. I'm a commitment folk, so I'm not gonna commit to something that's going to drag me down just because. I'm just not gonna do that. So I want to be absolutely positively sure that this thing that I hitch my wagon to is going to, for lack of a better word, serve the purpose that is intended to serve. In a relationship, is a symbiotic partnership where both person learn each other and all this other stuff. I can get that definition later, but it shouldn't be something that is a burden to me. It should be a burden to them either.
Interesting, the married commitment. But
Yeah, exactly, for real.
yeah, what's interesting about that? Well, a couple of things. One, I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's a core thing. I think that, and the reason I say that is because, and this is a mistake I made when I talked about you dating weak women. I don't believe that a person is absolutely anything. So I think, and we've discussed this before, you can be 80% weak, 20% strong. You can be 70% liar, 30% truth teller. I think that nothing is absolute. So when talking about a person being weak, I don't I don't really think that's fair to the person
why
because
why did you just do a Reggie? I wasn't, we're talking in broad stuff. I wasn't talking about there's an absolute positivism to
no,
anything. But my thing is, before you even go there, hold on, before you go there, because we're not gonna go another 45 minutes without you actually defining your definition of weakness. So let's get that off the top.
well, I was gonna do that, but let me, and that was gonna lead into my definition, and that was my point.
Okay, sorry to cut your wisdom.
But somebody can exhibit weakness in certain areas, but not necessarily make them a weak person. So when I talk about dating someone who's weak, it's more they could go out and handle business in the um, at the workplace. They can handle business with their kids. They can handle business and all of that stuff. It's just that when it comes to relationships, there's just a weakness there because they don't want to fight or they feel like they're being dominated and they don't know how to react to that. Basically, my whole thing is about weakness and my definition of it. It's just like a failure to admit a shortcoming in yourself. I think everyone has weaknesses, and that's why I say no one is a weak person. We all just have areas of weakness. And that's because we all have them. And I think what really makes a person a weak what makes a person weak is not necessarily that they have shortcomings, but it's that they don't acknowledge and share those and admit to those shortcomings. And as such, if you don't admit to it, you don't do anything to correct that. And so when it comes to these areas coming back to dating, and specifically where I was coming from when I said that about you, it was more about these women. Um, well, I'll put it like this. I think that if I took a poll of women that you've dated, I haven't done it, but I would
That's
guess
funny.
that they would agree that you are a bully and not, and I disagree with that. I don't think you're a bully because I think I used an example before of what a bully actually is. And if,
Well, let's refresh the viewers' memory on what that definition is.
well, I use the example of if I went and played basketball with LeBron James and played basketball in like over a decade, he would dominate me in a way that if somebody were watching that, they would say, man, LeBron's bullying that dude. When, that doesn't make him a bully. He's just that much more skilled than I am at this thing. But to the outside person, it would be seen as bullying. And so when it comes to relationships, and I've seen you in conversations with women where it looked like, damn, you being hard.
You did, damn.
Yeah, yeah, in a way that could be seen as bullying. Now, the difference in my basketball game with LeBron James is I would choose that and I would know that I was going to get dominated. Women don't necessarily choose that, and
Choose what?
really, they don't necessarily choose to be quote unquote bullied. And as such, they don't expect to be bullied when it happens.
Okay, you just flipped on me.
What-
They do choose to be quote unquote bullied because this is the process of getting into the relationship in the first place to get to know. And when it comes to me personally, um, me being the commitment folk that I am, like I said, I'm an on-off switch. This is one of the times that I don't usually do grays. Um, Either on, okay, this is because I've studied relationships and stuff like that, and I have my history, my past, and it has nothing to do with women, but my past, my family past, have pushed me in a direction where I extensively studied relationships and relationship dynamics and love languages and attachment styles, and because I want to find, for lack of a better word, the perfect relationship for me. Um, Taking personality tests of who I am and asking friends my weaknesses and stuff like that. So I want to have that one perfect relationship for me. So, and Michael has been in conversations with me where I get in this zone where it's like, no, that's not, no, 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 that's not what I'm, no. And, but it's not as, for lack of a better word, confrontational with Michael because me and Michael have the same train of thought versus we're trying to do this idea engagement versus sometimes when it comes to some of the women I dated, it's about being right and wrong. And when they get caught in a conversation of inconsistent thinking or reasoning, they try to flip the script because they don't want to have egg on their face and ego saying, no, 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 that's not what we're talking about. And, for instance, well, why didn't you, going back to that peanut butter thing? So, Reggie, why did you not put the peanut butter in the thing? Well, I just forgot, blah, blah. Well, you always do this. And that. Well, okay. And this is an example for me. This is what happens. Well, why don't you take the trash out when I tell you to take the trash out or whatever, blah, blah. So you try to change the narrative to get it off you versus sit there and say, no, I was wrong. You're right. I should have put the peanut butter back into the refrigerator or where the hell you put peanut butter these days. So you try, instead of just owning up to the fact that, yeah, someone called a criticism on you, instead of just owning up and saying, yeah, you're right, you got me on that, they try to change the subject or they try to put it on you.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Well, that's not the premise that I'm coming from.
Okay.
Because the way that you're describing it is kind of more of like irrational behavior. And that's not what I'm talking about. Because
Okay.
I have been in rooms with women that you've dated and they've brought things up and I've agreed with them in front of you. And you would defend your position against both of us. And
True. But
well, and
hey,
that's
hold
the
on, hold on. Is that somebody blowing your house or my house?
no, that's you, Chief.
Huh. Oh, either someone got married or wow, that's kind of cool, I guess. Huh.
Okay. Yeah.
Redskin fan? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't say that. Washington football team fan, which I actually like, but that's sidetracking. But it goes back to what we said in the earlier conversation, though. No one wants to be wrong. I mean, even I trip up sometimes, and after introspection, I'll be like, they may have a point. But
Well,
at the point, I'm not
well,
gonna
yeah.
sit there and do that.
But even that, because like I said, I agree with the person, and you'll do the thing that you do. Like you say, you don't want to be wrong. You'll get defensive and stuff like that. We'll go back and forth on that, and there are times when you'll agree. Sometimes you won't agree, and that's what it'll be left.
Yes.
So if that's the case, I can only imagine if I'm not there. Well, because I've also been in situations with you when a woman has brought something up. I've agreed with them, but I didn't say anything, and I just because I just didn't care enough, and I just watched the interaction between you and that woman, and it devolves from a conversation into almost like this lecturing tone, where it's just like you just like beat them down, beat them down, beat them down, beat them down. And because they don't debate in the same ways that guys debate, the way that you and I debate, it's like it almost seems like it seems like it looks like bullying. And as far as the weakness thing comes in, my question to them, and the reason I would say that they're weak in that area is because I'm just confused as to if they feel that they're right on that, why do they
Defend your point. Yeah.
not
Defend
even
your point.
not even defending the point. It's like because I
Okay.
feel like they do defend the point. You just don't agree with it, and yeah,
True.
yeah, you just don't agree with it, and they defend the point, but you just not trying to hear it, and so that's when it turns into the bullying, lecturing tone and stuff like that. And to them, I wonder. I just sit there and think, why are you just taking that? It's like you don't, and it's not even about defending the point. It's like the tone. Why do you allow him to talk to you that way? And
Oh, that's a whole different thing because, oh, like I said, it's kind of funny because we had this conversation offline, and I have a very short fuse when it comes to circular arguments, when it comes to stuff like that and vagueness. When you're going to sit there and throw a criticism out, you start to do your points. And this is the difference between how me and you talk about things and how they talk about things. And granted, as I have done more research and realized that women are different when it comes to communication skills, when it comes to relationships and stuff like that, and blah, blah, blah. When it comes to those topics, I get into, as you like to say, debate mode. And debate mode is one of the rare times I actually pay attention to details. Because more, no, and Michael would tell you, I'm not a detailed person. But when it comes to debate mode, I become very detailed. And I become very detailed and I become very fact oriented versus most of my life, I am conceptual and ideas and concepts and connections and all that stuff. For whatever reason, and maybe a flaw in me, I don't need vagueness when you're criticizing me. Well, you always do this because that trigger always like no. What do you mean by always? And then we're going to start. I'm going to start picking apart the argument because of a trigger word. So it's going back to what you said earlier about communication. Both sides need to learn how to communicate. Me, I need to learn how to be more patient, which I don't have, but they need to also be more articulate with their wording.
This is the perfect example of what I'm talking about how things go when you and I don't agree on something, except it's not the communication isn't as measured. Because here's an example of what I'm talking about. On a few podcasts ago, I don't remember what podcast it was, but when you were talking about and all that stuff, and I said, and you were saying that you were, let's say, sensitive. I don't remember what it was, but let's say that you said that you were sensitive, and I was like, dude, you can ask 10 people in your life, including your wife, if you're sensitive, and they'd all say no. And then you're like, well, I have a test. Written in 1942 overrides people who see you every day. And you're like, yep. And see, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. And those are the types of arguments that what arguments? Those are the types of conflicts that I've watched you in with your exes. And I'm just like, so when you talk about, well, they're talking in circular tones or their logic or whatever, it's like, they say sometimes, because sometimes they are a little off. But when I agree with them, it's because they're using the same type of logic that I would use. And my question would be, again, one, why do they just sit there and take it? Because it's not necessarily a flaw in their logic. Why would they take it? And then my question would be, it's interesting how I can say something, she can say something, you'll just dismiss her, but at least you'll like hear me out before you disagree with me. And you're definitely not talking to me in a tone that's lecturing or bullying. So
But see, it goes back to hold up, but it goes back to what we said in earlier podcast. You know me for 30 years, and you actually paid attention to me as I pay attention to you.
But I guess,
And then this may be my bias. I don't think that people, women, because I only date women, but people in general do not pay attention to each other's significant others in a relationship to actually get to know who the hell they're really dealing with here. So, going back to that respect and that earning and that trust thing, I trust you, Michael. I respect you because you have, for the most part, now sometimes you're wrong. I sit there and say you're full of shit. Um, can we say shit now on YouTube?
you can say whatever you want to, Chief.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
Let us know.
you just edit it out. Actually, you don't edit. But anyway,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
okay. Anyway, good. But it's like 30 years of shared experiences, even though, we haven't lived in the same state since we were teenagers, still understanding the thought processes and all these other things that hasn't been built in a relationship with the type of woman I have. Now, when me and my wife, this, we talked about a lot of things and stuff like that. And, I can be a chatterbox and blah, blah, blah. And most people shut me down like, oh my God, would you just shut the fuck up? Really? Can I say that? Anyway, um, everyone wants to be paid attention to, including me. And if I think that, and now I don't think my bias is this: women don't pay attention to who the hell they're dealing with, and therefore I'm gonna just not respect you and just shut you off.
But see, you're saying that and you keep putting it off on the women, but in
I'm
these
dating women.
but no, you're putting it off on these women that you dated. But again, we're referring to times when they were right in what they
I
said.
don't. But
And so it's not necessarily about you keep making it like a referendum on them.
no. So let me no, hold on. Let me clarify. No. I don't want to say that because I want to throw in this. My bias is the fact that it's a bias. There is a bias. I do have a bias. I understand that bias, and that bias sometimes leads me to exactly what you're saying.
Well, well, what I'm saying is though, yeah, it's like because I understand the relationship thing, and we went back to that in the last podcast about knowing somebody longer. Therefore, it gives they have more credit when they say it versus someone else that you've known for a few months. We just went over that, But my thing is, like I said in the last podcast, if I'm dating someone and she says something about me, I'll take it to, like, for lack of a better word, a council of people to say, hey, she said this. What I won't do is beat them down over it in a way that kind of leaves them with like a shred of dignity. If they tell me something about myself, I'll ask follow-up questions and they might take it a certain way, but I'm not going to
Hold up, I don't ask
sit
follow up
down and try
questions,
to
or
get them to
I just go into attack mode.
huh?
Do I ask follow up questions, or I just go into attack mode?
Yeah, you go into attack mode.
I totally disagree with that.
You see, and that's goes back to, like I said, if we could take a poll, and we would really get the answer to that because you can
Oh,
disagree.
we
But
should take a poll because I totally disagree. I just automatically get defensive and go into attack mode when someone criticizes me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is one of those things where me and Michael see each other differently than we actually see each other because I no.
And another example I can bring up, and I can bring this up because you mentioned it in a podcast when we were having that conversation about you being quote unquote sensitive or whatever the trait.
I never said I was sensitive.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Empathetic, maybe, but not sensitive.
yeah, and that's why I keep using symbols because I can't remember what they all were, but there was something that you were saying that you were, and I was like, I don't think you're that, Chief. And
I do consider myself empathetic. I just don't necessarily go by the consensus of how people define it.
well, anyway, going back to the conversation that we had on one of the podcasts, and you were saying that you were this because this test showed you that you were that. And I said, that's funny. And then I said, what would your wife think? And your first response was, well, who's asking the question? And I was like, asking the question. And then you said, am I in the room? And that was the part that really like stuck out to me because I'm like, why would it matter if you're in the room or not unless she felt like she was going to be bullied by you? And so that's what I'm saying, speaking more in terms like that. If a woman, and many women have, brings something to me about myself, I'll ask questions, but it's not like there's ever a point where if somebody else asked her, I would have to leave the room for fear of, I don't know why I would have to leave the room.
Exactly. That's but see, you making my point for me. It's like you should be consistent across the board, whether I'm in a room or not. That's why I asked. And my thing also is this. Um Understanding human behavior in the first place, and there's a lot of baggage that people put on you and project on you that has nothing to actually do with you. So, you know, I'm not just going to take someone's face value criticism and stuff, blah blah blah, on me without them actually defining themselves and not understanding some of the insecurities they may be bringing and dumping on me. I'm like, no, I'm not doing all that. So, so yeah, sometimes I do begin in attack mode because sometimes, particularly back in the day, I've been with you 5, 6, 7 years. It's like, okay, you should know me. Why you should know me? Why would you say that? Why would you, you know,
Well, maybe because it's true. Like I said, I'm only bringing up cases where I've agreed with them. So it's like to bring up something that they see as like deficient about you isn't like saying that they don't know you. Shoot, regardless of how long you know someone, you can still see things about them that might be deficient. Again, like we said, that might not be beneficial to them in a relationship. That's the reason they're bringing up, not in the
well,
grand of your life outside of the relationship.
no,
But
I get that.
what it all comes down to, or to me, because I don't mean to make this like a referendum on you.
Now you are.
Yeah, that's what it's turning into. But it's like I just wonder why those women and women in general, like when a guy is weak in a relationship, I know why. Like I can point to why, and I because I don't know, I'm not a woman. I don't necessarily know the reason, but I just don't understand in those relationships in the past when I witnessed these things. I'm just like, what is it about you that will just allow you to take that? Because even one thing I've never heard a woman say to you, which is weird to me, is because if you think that the person is too loud, or if you think the person is yelling when they're not yelling, if you think they're angry when they're not, I've never heard a woman say to you, yo, dude, calm it down. It's not that deep. Or yo, dude, you can't talk to me that way, or anything like that. It's just like silence and stuff. And that's the way these things usually end, at least that I've witnessed.
Mm,
You talk,
mm,
and then eventually they get quieter and quieter and quieter. And it's like, to
mm.
me, that is weakness that you would take. You present an issue, and then when they defend it, you kind of get mousy. Not you, but the women, they get mousy. And I'm like, that's what led me to saying that, yeah, you dated
Eh,
weak women.
I totally disagree with that for one reason, because there are a couple of them that I know right now that they match fire with fire, but they match it in the wrong sense. And it goes back to the one I was telling you about where the sunrise and stuff like that. She wasn't getting mousy, but at the same time, she wasn't also addressing the issue. Like you sat there and said, yo, dude, it's not that serious. We still having a conversation about blah, blah, blah. 'Cause you got to remember, I'm still human. And, I had this issue. Yeah, I had this issue with you. The fact that, dude, I do have emotions too. But it was like, they're buried. But that's not the point. Um, I'm going to stay out my lane. I'm going to swerve out my lane every once in a while. I'm not perfect. And then, I try to be as perfect as I possibly can, but I'm not perfect. So I need someone, like you sit there and say, go, dude, you swerving. Get back in your lane. And not always have me do that.
But if somebody's gonna say that you're swerving, and then you're gonna like get defensive with them, and
No one, no, but as you said, but to your point, outside of you, no woman has ever said, yo, dude, you're swerving. They're just trying to fight.
well, no, I disagree with that, because I think that if you were more agreeable from time to time, that they would be more open to telling me that you're
They
swerving.
don't have to, I don't have to be agreeable. Dude, I'm not agreeable with you. Dude, you're swerving.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm not gonna sit there. I ain't swerving. I mean, dude, you're swerving.
yeah, but you don't. But I will say this too, and it might be a product of the years that we've put in and things like that. But you don't talk to me the way you talk to them.
Like I said, you're making my point here.
Well, no, and you're making my point though.
How am I making your point?
My point is that you don't talk to me that way that I've seen you talk to these women, and therefore, we there wouldn't be an issue, because if you talk to me the way you talk to them, I would have to ask myself, why am I hanging around this dude and he talks to me that way? And if I continue to hang around you and you don't show me respect,
But
and
it goes back to what we said before.
I,
If I'm doing all these bad things, why didn't you check it in the first place?
well, and that's my point. That's why I consider these women weak. And you not to agree, but it's like, and that's why I say it. I don't think you're a bully, but to them, it could be bullying, and it seems obvious in those moments. And you're not with them anymore, so I guess became apparent one way or another that
Hmm.
you weren't compatible in that way. But as I'm sitting there listening to these conversations, I'm just like, why do you stay here? And it's just like, it's
No, maybe I'm thinking the same thing. Why are you staying here?
right, right, and I
And
think
maybe
that's,
that's why I did, maybe that's why I'll continue to bully. It's like, why are you staying here?
yeah, and I think it's fair, and I think that's fair, because we're all talking about adults, and when I talk about bullying and talking down to someone, and this was back then, shoot, they always had their ability to leave. That's why I would watch that sometimes, because one thing, you wouldn't get reckless and start calling them out of their names or anything like that. I'm just like, shoot, she's an adult. Stand up for yourself. And it's like,
And going back to what I said before about the weakness thing, stand up. If I'm wrong, stand up and say, no, you're wrong.
because, and that's the thing that gets me, because I'm like, okay, what do you think is the worst going to happen? You've never seen like a violent streak from this dude. So
No.
it's not like he's going to start beating you up.
Do all that prints and throw you in the trash can.
What is the weakness that exists within you that you'll stay there but not defend yourself?
Oh, I know the weakness.
Do tell. Is like,
It's flipped. I would actually leave. So they take it. It's like, no, dude, it's not about understanding me. You standing up to me and correcting me when I'm wrong. You're supposed to be my partner. You're supposed to be my other son. I need that from you. I'm not gonna leave you if you correct me and you're right. I'm not. but they may be so the fear of me leaving them, they just sit there and take it. Well, I just have to goes back to what my thing is about weaknesses, and you giving up your core values to satisfy and please me.
And after 40 minutes, we get to the point. That's the I believe that there's a fundamental flaw that women and men feel like they are in the best situation that they can get. Because, like I said, I know why men stay. Men stay despite that weakness because, she's fun, she does things for them that they feel like they can't get from any place else. And the same thing with women. It's like they stay,
True.
take that because they feel like that's the best that they can get. And
That or the fear of being alone.
right. And that is a fundamental flaw. And that gets to the root of weaknesses. And yeah, it's, yeah. And not to this, because every human being has weaknesses in some form.
Oh
But
wow.
when you're in that situation,
Wait,
and
wait, wait, hold on. What are you pointing at me and saying that situation? What
oh
you
no,
trying to say?
no.
I'm messing with you. I'm
Yeah,
messing with you.
yeah, right. I didn't realize it, but yeah, I looked at the camera, I was like, yeah, I guess it's damn, you get forceful with it. But yeah,
Remember, I'm a bully, man. I'm LeBron.
I know, right? Don't forget me. But yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's just like, and it's kind of sad when it manifests itself in this way in relationships because weaknesses in other areas,
Mm.
they seem to be more like accepted, but weaknesses in relationships just lead to worse things than being
Resentment and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
right. If you're at your job and you're not good at it, it's like that might affect you because you spend so much time at your job, but you can easily dismiss that as that's my job, that's not my life.
Yep.
But in a relationship, it's a totally different thing. And what makes it even worse is a lot of people in that time, those exes that we're talking about, they probably wouldn't even admit that they're weak. They'll try to like blame you and just
Oh no, no, try to. They have blamed me. And granted, like I said, I'm not perfect. There's no way I'm perfect. But check me.
right because I talk about the bullying thing and stuff like that, and we went over like you and back and forth and stuff like that. But you're not a bad dude. Like I said, you're not cursing, beating, and all that stuff. It's just that you need a certain type of woman, like we all need a certain type. And if someone's there and it's obvious to them that they're not that type, but they stay, that's a fundamental weakness. And that was my whole point. I can't believe we actually like, I feel like we actually wrapped up a topic.
We did, and actually, we talked about the same thing. This is usually, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is how me and Michael always come to terms with things because in the first podcast, that's exactly what he just sat there and said is exactly what I mean by weakness.
Yeah. Yeah. In the 2 minutes that we have left. Yeah. It's sad. And it's something that goes back to what you talked about in the last podcast. You need introspection to figure this out and to answer these questions. Because my whole thing is, I don't think the solution is yelling and start cursing them out because they ask you a follow-up question.
No.
And I definitely don't think the solution is to be a shrinking violent and just get mousy and be like, well, it seems like he's mad, so I don't want to talk about it anymore. So you just table it and just
True.
suppress that. So yeah, so you need to analyze, is that the person for you, which it doesn't seem like those women do. It doesn't seem like enough women do. And I think that's the difference between women and men. It seems like more men in relationships will make that assessment, she's not for me, and go find somebody else, as opposed to a woman who it seems like will try harder to make it work when it's not workable.
Square peg, round hole.
Yeah. So we have 50 minutes, Reggie. You got anything else on that?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up for me. Like I said, your definition is very concise of the fact that, yeah, you don't hold true to your core values and you try to put a square peg in a round hole and you continue to try to put it there instead of just saying, nah, I'm going to find me a round hole to put my round peg
Yeah.
in.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
roll peg. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, see, you pervert, you talking about fucking. I'm sorry. datingwhileadulting.com. Thank you all for coming by, and sorry about the first 8 minutes. I like my cooking shows. Say bye, Reggie.
Bye, Reggie.